Tony Elumelu Foundation. Keep it going, guys. Maybe Lynn and Tony, don't run away from me. I know we're going to ask tough questions. Come sit. Oh, do you want to? Oh, yes. But you know the setup better than I do.
We follow
Oh,
the
no.
directions.
All right. I didn't take cue very well from the team. Hold on, I'm trapped. All right, guys. So capitalism, Africapitalism. There's a lot to get into, and it's a subject that I'm very close to my heart, very important. And Lady Lynn, I'm going to start with you because you run the Council for Inclusive Capitalism. When I think of inclusive capitalism, it almost sounds like an oxymoron. You know, it's like compassionate capitalism. You know, capitalism for all. And if we look at the state of the world right now, it's fair to say that capitalism has helped in creating a large gap between the rich and the poor. So tell me how you're viewing it.
Well, first of all, thank you to everyone who's here, and thank you to CNN for putting this together. It's a fascinating and really important topic, and thank you for including inclusive capitalism into it. And I love that you start by saying it's an oxymoron, because therein lies the problem. Inclusive capitalism, to Adam Smith, who invented capitalism, would have been a redundancy. But you are right. It's an oxymoron to most people today, which is exactly why we fight for inclusive capitalism. And really, it has nothing to do with any woke agenda. Inclusive capitalism is about saving capitalism. Because if capitalism doesn't work for everyone, the system of capitalism is going to go away. You see a democratic socialist coming to power in New York. 68% of Americans, and you think of America as red meat capitalism, 68% say the system does not work for them. The Federal Reserve just said that the top 1% of Americans control the same wealth as all the middle class. Now, you could say, oh, well, let's just get to the 1%. It doesn't work that way. The 1% will come down and will be taken down by the people who will resent the system. And why I love working as I have for so many years with Tony Elumelu is because by coming up with the idea of Afro-capitalism, which I'll let you describe, but essentially it is what the private sector needs to do for society. We are hand in glove with inclusive capitalism. And in a world where capitalism is under siege, we as investors, as managers, as CEOs, as entrepreneurs, as customers, as workers, we need to work for how to save the system by making it better for everyone. Okay. That's inclusive.
Brilliant. A brilliant way to start this conversation, frankly, because we are seeing the unraveling of rules as we know it, and we don't know sort of where everything's going to land after the rejigging of the world as we know it. Tony, Africapitalism, it was a term that you coined in 2011. And I want you to take me through the thinking and where we are today, because you take so much of your wealth and you invest it back into youth and entrepreneurs. And this is really important because Tony, since you started the Tony Elumelu Foundation, you're focusing on the young guys up and coming. You're giving them $5,000 of seed capital, and it's having such an enormous impact because you're so pro-Africapitalism, because small to medium-sized enterprises are the lifeblood, frankly, of the continent.
Thanks, Eleni and Lynn. Always a pleasure to share stage with you. And thanks to CNN, organizing this event is quite good at a time that there's a lot of distortion of information on Africa and what's happening in the global economy. So this kind of conversation is very good. And with the audience, I see those I think the future of the world belongs to an audience. So it's good. Basically, the world, the global economy has faced a lot of crises in the past few decades. Crisis of inequality, crisis of exclusion, and of course in recent times environmental stress. And it's against this background that we came up with this philosophy and concept of Afro-capitalism. And I must say that it's not African adaptation of capitalism. It's a redefinition of capitalism to address the germane issues that Lynn just talked about. We believe that the private sector must play a critical role in creating economic prosperity and social transformation for society, for humanity. We believe that in the 21st century, capitalism must be centered on community involvement, community inclusion. We believe to a large extent that there's no profit and purpose are not at rival. There are no rivalry between both. We need both of them.
So profit and purpose, they need to converge.
Profit and purpose
Yeah.
are partners, especially in African Renaissance, and talking about the Afro-capitalism in the world today. So to us, getting the private sector to invest, not about charity per se, to invest in critical sectors that help to create economic prosperity and social transformation is what we need.
And frankly, and this is important actually, Tony, because you look at bankable projects whenever you're investing in these young entrepreneurs. You're helping create bankable projects. So it's not charity per se. You're looking at viable businesses.
I think that inclusive capitalism, it's not about charity. It's about value creation. It's about inclusion. It's about addressing, making sure that businesses don't work for profit alone, don't work for shareholders alone, that they work, and at the core of what they do is community. So what we do at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, to me, my wife, and by the way, Lynn was a founding board member of Tony Elumelu Foundation. She served on the board for some years. So our interest in humanity did not start today. We thought and realized that our success is not defined by the wealth or the money we have in our bank accounts. We thought we couldn't be successful if we did not play our own role in helping to catalyze economic prosperity for all on the continent of Africa. But we realized too that we can't do it alone. And that's why we're not going on that journey alone. We go with people. Yeah. We identify young African entrepreneurs. Every year, we provide non-refundable seed capital of $5,000, between 3,000 and 5,000 young Africans every year, all across all 54 African countries every year. And that is Africapitalism.
Yeah.
That is private sector. Because when we talk about private sector investment, it's not just in physical infrastructure, but investing in young people is an investment that helps to catalyze more prosperity.
Yeah. And that's going to be the secret recipe. And then I want to go back to sort of this notion of capitalism as a whole globally is perhaps under siege. And that we, could see sort of the dismantling of capitalism as we know it. And I wonder what sort of we're going to be seeing as a new system going forward, and whether you think about it, whether you're worried about it, and how does that then affect what Tony Elumelu and the Afro-capitalists are trying to achieve?
Well, I think a very important foundational block is what you alluded to, which is that inclusive capitalism and Afro-capitalism are not philanthropy. We're not talking about how you give away your money, although Tony is an example of giving away his money in a most inspired way to improve his country and his continent. But what matters is how we make our money. So we have both an economic imperative, which is that if we treat our workers better, we're going to have less turnover. If we treat our customers with respect, we're going to have more loyalty. If we engage with our community, there's going to be, again, more customer loyalty. that there is an economic reason to run your business for more than profit, what Tony eloquently calls profit and purpose. So there's that economic reason for doing it. But then there is, to your point, that there is not only the economic reason for our individual businesses, but we have to care about the ecosystem in which we're operating. Because remember, a corporation wasn't invented by God. God didn't create the corporation. We're allowed to exist as corporations because society allows us to. We have the consent of the public. If we ever lose that consent, then it's chaos.
So Lynn, I want to interject there because we are starting to see, and frankly it's the youth, and we've got a youth panel later on today, that are speaking out about the current system and the way the governments are handling, critical infrastructure and services. Are you worried? Are you saying that if the population stands up and says, we're not happy with the system anymore, that it could collapse? Do you think that's a probability?
Oh, I think, I'm doing everything I can to make it not a probability. Yeah. It's certainly a possibility. It's certainly not a zero probability. There's some probability that societies will turn away from capitalism. Gen Z today in America, 35% already think socialism is better than capitalism. And you're all invested in Africa. And Africa is really a place that could test the contest between capitalism and socialism.
Yeah.
And what is America doing? And is America doing it correctly? We know we're not doing it 100% correctly. But the combination of Chinese and American inputs and what kind of system are you going to create? Which is why Afro-capitalism, which is private sector based, where it combines an overall purpose with a profit motive, it's very, very important. And we can't lose that. And I don't think we will, but we could.
And that is a risk. And I think that's something that worries me. And I want to ask you this, Tony. We talk about influence on the continent, whether it's economic influence from China, the BRICS nations, global South versus West. I mean, you guys know what's going on. And Lynn made a very important point. Sort of, is there a cross-section of capitalism and socialism when you look at Afro-capitalism? And how do you think this is going to play out? I mean, is Africa going to be non-aligned when the dust settles?
Let me start by saying that Africapitalism moves us away from extraction to creation.
Yeah.
It moves us away from consumption to production. And it moves us from dependency to dignity.
Who's going to help us sign the better economic deals then? Who would we be aligning with?
Eleni. I think it's all about it's all about long-term interests. The interest of Africa is one that we create local value on the continent. We move away from exportation of raw materials. We create. Africa has significant youth unemployment. I call it a betrayal of the young generation in Africa that we cannot find great jobs for them. So in seeking to align with powers or economies of the world, developed economies, there should be first an alignment of our long-term interests, job creation, youth empowerment, inclusion. Which of the global economies best offers or helps our attainment of these core objectives? To me, that will define how we align. Africa needs massive investment in infrastructure to transform the continent. We talk about AI. I just came back from a conversation in Riyadh about AI. Yeah. And my position is consistent. Africa should not even talk about AI when access to common electricity is not available on the continent. So we need alignment with global partners, development agencies, private sector. And for me, it's not African private sector. It's Africa's private sector that does business in Africa, we need to start rethinking, reimagining how we operate on the continent. We need to begin to see, and that's why I'm 100% aligned with the intersection of community, shareholders, value creation, everyone being on the table. There's no reason to align with people who come to the continent for the purpose of extraction of raw materials. We need our raw material processed on the continent so local value addition can be created, so that the youth unemployment that we have in Africa is addressed, so that catalytic intervention activities that help to propel and take Africa to the next level is attained. That would define what we do, or who I should be aligning.
Fantastic. And just on the note on AI, the world cannot achieve its AI agenda without Africa's critical minerals. Now we just need to start processing them on the continent. So that's the next big thing. We've run out of time, but big thank you to Lady Lynn and to Tony Elumelu. Thank you so much. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Right. I'm going to introduce your next panel right now. Lady Lynn and Tony, thank you. I'll meet you backstage shortly. All right, there you go. Take a step down. Thank you so much. All right, so our next conversation on how to fuel the startup ecosystem. Please welcome Olubenga Agbula, co-founder and CEO of Flutterwave, Lucy Liu, co-founder and president of AWALEX, Alex Okosi, managing director of Google Africa, Serene Dium, CEO of MTN Group